Financial frauds are not victimless crimes. He engaged in this massive amount of fraud, and it wasn't just a simple mistake, a slight oversight. The variations were wildly exaggerated, and the extent of the fraud was staggering. If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
There's one thing we know he understands. It's that last three words, seize his assets. Yikes. Hi again, everybody. It's now 5 o'clock in New York. Today marked the deadline for the twice impeached, 4 times indicted ex-president to come up with his more than $450 million bond in the New York civil fraud trial, where Judge Engoron found he and his businesses liable for fraud. It was a number Trump already said he couldn't pay. There seemed to be a very likely possibility assets like Trump Tower and 40 Wall Street could soon be seized. But today, right under the deadline, a panel of New York State Appellate Division judges swooped in, lowering Trump's bond requirement to $175 million and giving him an additional 10 days to post it, handing for the moment a sizable reprieve to the ex-president. Now, whether he follows through on his word that he will pay it, we'll see. While the amount has been reduced and the former president has until April 4th now to pay it, the clock is ticking nonetheless. New York Attorney General Letitia James was out with this statement shortly after the appeals court lowered the bond. Quote, Donald Trump is still facing accountability for his staggering fraud. The court has already found that he engaged in years of fraud to falsely inflate his net worth and unjustly enrich himself, his family, and his organization. The $464 million judgment, plus interest, against Trump and the other defendants still stands. The judgment still stands. One Trump has said he will appeal. In the ruling today, the appeals court judges noted that Trump's legal team has to get its case in order for the court's September 2024 term, meaning his appeal argument will be heard this fall. But that doesn't mean he's on the hook until the fall. Today's ruling came down while the ex-president was in a New York courtroom for that other case, the criminal hush money case brought by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Jury selection for that trial begins on April 15th. All of this adding up to a presumptive GOP presidential nominee deeply mired in legal woes and still owing millions and millions of dollars. It's where we start the hour with some of our most favorite reporters and friends. Former top official at the Department of Justice and MSNBC legal analyst, our friend Andrew Weissmann is here. Plus, senior opinion writer and columnist for the Boston Globe and MSNBC political analyst Kim Atkinsdorf is here. And back with me at the table, New York Times investigative reporter Sue Craig is here. Andrew Weissmann, I start with you. Take me through the state of being Donald Trump.
Well, he had some temporary good news and he had some bad news today, sort of an amazing confluence of things. So, as you noted, the amount of the bond that he has to put up is only $175 million. It's hard to sort of get those words out, but certainly that is less than $450 million. That does not mean that he ultimately may not have to pay $450 million. That issue of whether the judgment in full will be affirmed on appeal is one that's going to be decided quickly. I would note that two provisions that the Court of Appeals, this appellate court, said are going to stay in place is having a compliance monitor and this independent monitor overseeing Donald Trump. That they said is not stayed. So he is going to have what I'd like to term two babysitters overseeing him during the course of this appeal to make sure there are no financial shenanigans. And then, of course, he had bad news in terms of the date that was the soonest date that could possibly have the criminal case could have occurred, which is April 15th. Irony there, tax day, is the date that Judge Merchan selected. And in very sort of scathing language with respect to one of the two criminal defense lawyers saying that, the government here has acted in good faith, really rebuking that criminal defense lawyer for his allegations and the way he handled himself. And the one comment I would just flag for viewers is keep your eye on this discrepancy between their two defense lawyers for Donald Trump, Todd Blanche and Susan Necheles. And I would keep your eye on an ongoing schism that I see, because Susan Necheles is a very well-known, very reputable criminal defense lawyer, really excellent at her job. But she is not signing on to all of the papers that get filed, because she has her limits, and she is going to stay within those limits, as she should as a respected lawyer. So that is something to keep, that I am certainly keeping my eye on, is where Todd Blanche is making arguments that she is not willing to put her reputation behind, because that is not what, you are not a hired gun. You are retained, and you have an obligation as an officer of the court. So I would just keep an eye on that as the case goes forward.
In what way? I mean, does that mean that she could quit? Does that mean that Todd Blanche is doing something we could view more seedy? I mean, what does that mean?
So, great question. So I think it is really a tell for the court. So let me give you an example. There was a letter brief that was submitted to the judge saying that Michael Cohen shouldn't even be allowed to testify, and really outrageous statements were in there. That was only signed by Todd Blanche. The message to the court is that this is sort of off the charts, that somebody who's kind of drunk the Kool-Aid is going to write that, because normally, and it also suggests that there is a lack of sort of client control going on. And so if you're looking for places where there is going to be sort of political arguments unfounded in law or facts, I would look to see whether they are signed by both counsel or just one counsel. And I think that is clearly going to be assigned to the judge, who is going to be looking at that. The other point is it's very unusual. Usually it is a united front that goes and it presents the defense to court, and it suggests that sort of internal turmoil as to how far you can go, and a real suggestion of how far Donald Trump is pushing them beyond the limits of what you should be doing as counsel.
Sue.
Well, my mind's sort of in the bond today, and I'm just still chewing that over. It's incredible that they knocked it down so much.
Yeah. Why do you think they did that?
The frustrating thing is for viewers who haven't read it is we just don't know. I mean, it was a 1-2 page decision, and they knocked it down and gave them another 10 days. When I think about why they might have, I think that it reached the Trump arguments on it really were reaching fever pitch. I mean, they were on the pressure, and their filing, they said they had gone to 30 companies. They couldn't get a bond of that size. And there was talk as we went on. We didn't know, we don't know what Letitia James was eyeing.
To seize.
To seize. And if it was, if she decided to go after his cash accounts, he obviously has some accounts. It could have seized payroll, his ability to service his debt and pay his vendors. It could have collapsed the company. And I think the appellate court, if I'm imagining some of the discussion around it, $175 million is still large. I think it's going to aggravate a lot of people that it wasn't the full amount. But they're saying that this company shouldn't, and the appellate court too didn't know what Letitia James was going to do. So I think they picked this number as something perhaps manageable.
Does he have it?
He says he does. We'll see. I'm very much I'll see it when I believe it person. He said he's going to put up cash for this. Whether he seeks a surety bond, which needs to be backed by cash, we don't know. That's what he did in the Eugene Carroll case, but that comes with extra fees. But now he's got 10 more days, and I think that this gives him, as frustrating as it is for many people to see this, it gives him, it's a win for him, and it gives him some breathing room, so that the company. And the concern from there, and they were making this case, the Trump people, that the company maybe couldn't survive this. And so I think it'll at least give it. I mean,
and that was an open question, right? I mean, that's a question.
It's hard when we're talking about it, because you sort of hate to see some things you just don't know. But we didn't know what Letitia James was going to do, and she wanted to collect. She could have done various things with his assets, or she could have just moved right in and began to seize his cash, and that would have crippled the company.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.